This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
Pressed on in her French army ambulance towards the advancing enemy. She persevered, even when the Stukas came screaming down to drop 50-kilo bombs onto the convoys all around her, torching the cars and cratering the roads. Even when fighter planes swept over the treetops to machine-gun the ditches where women and children were trying to take cover from the carnage. Even though French soldiers were deserting their units, abandoning their weapons and running away, some in their tanks. Even when her left hip was shot through with pain from continually pressing down on the clutch with her prosthetic foot. Now, at the age of 34, her mission marked a turning point after years of cruel rejection. For her own sake, as much as for the casualties she was picking up from the battlefields and ferrying to hospital, she could not fail again. There were many reasons why she was willingly risking her life far from home in aid of a foreign country when millions of others were giving up. Perhaps foremost among them was that it had been so long since she had felt so thrillingly alive. Disgusted at the cowardice of the deserters, she could not understand why they would not continue the fight. But then she had so little to lose. The French still remembered sacrificing a third of their young menfolk to the Great War, and a nation of widows and orphans was in no mood for more bloodshed. Virginia, though, intended to go on to the end, wherever the battle took her. She was prepared to take whatever risks, face down any dangers. Total war against the Third Reich might perversely offer her one last hope of personal peace. Yet even this was as nothing to what was to come, in a life that drew out into a Homeric tale of adventure, action, and seemingly unfathomable courage. Virginia Hall's service in the summer of 1940 was merely an apprenticeship for what soon became a near-suicide mission against the tyranny of the Nazis and their puppets in France. She pioneered a daredevil role of espionage, sabotage, and subversion in an era when women barely featured in the prism of heroism, when their part in combat was confined to the supportive and palliative, when disabled women, or men, were confined to staying at home and leading often narrow, unsatisfying lives. The fact that a young woman who had lost her leg broke through the tightest of constrictions and overcame prejudice and even hostility to help the Allies win the Second World War is astonishing. The fact that a female guerrilla leader of her stature remains so little known is incredible. Yet that is perhaps how Virginia would have wanted it. She operated in the shadows, where she was happiest. Even to her closest allies in France, she seemed to have no home or family or regiment, merely a burning desire to defeat the Nazis. They knew neither her real name or her nationality, nor how she had arrived in their midst. Constantly changing in looks and demeanour, surfacing without notice across whole swathes of France, only to disappear again as suddenly, she remained an enigma throughout the war, and in some ways after it too. Even now, tracing her story has involved 3 solid years of detective work, taking me from the National Archives in London, via the Resistance Files in Lyon, and the parachute drop zones in the Haute-Loire, to the judicial dossiers of Paris, and even the white marble corridors of the CIA headquarters at Langley. My search led me through 9 levels of security clearance, and into the heart of today's world of espionage. I have discussed the pressures of operating in enemy territory with former members of Britain's Special Forces. I have tracked down files that have gone missing and discovered that others remain lost or unaccounted for. I have spent days drawing organigrams matching dozens of code names with her scores of missions, months hunting down remaining extracts of those strange disappeared papers, years digging out hundreds of forgotten documents and memoirs. Of course, The best guerrilla leaders do not intend to keep future historians happy by keeping perfect records of their overnight missions, and those that do exist are often